Hi, this is Sam Pettit and I'm here at Kosmic in Osborne Park. I'm upstairs in this cool little studio room that we've got here, and I'm here to demonstrate the brand new Roland SPD-SX sampling pad. So you might have seen the Roland SPD-S, which was the predecessor of the SPD-SX. I used to have one of those, but I've upgraded to this one now because it does a whole lot of cool stuff that the SPD-S didn't do. So the new features on the SPD-SX is it comes with software, so it's really easy to arrange all of your samples and you do it via your computer rather than on the gig having to look into this tiny little screen and trying to organise all of your samples. Also, the SPD-SX has a different way of controlling your effects. While the SPD-S had effects built into it, this is a different way of doing it. It gives you a little bit more control over your effects while your samples are running. Another thing I really like about the SX is it's got more trigger inputs, so it means you can put more triggers on your drums and more pads around your kit. The old SPD-S only had 512 meg of memory, whereas this has got 2 gigabytes of memory, so it's just massive. It's way more than what the old one was. So I really wanted to tell you today how I actually use my SPD-SX in the real world. I use mine pretty much 99% of the time on all of my gigs. It just means that I've got access to so many more sounds than what I had before, and I've got a lot more control over them nowadays. So what I wanted to show you now is how I actually create my samples and how I get them into the SPD-SX. For the purpose of my demonstration today, I'm going to be using Logic on my computer, but you can use Pro Tools, Cubase, GarageBand, any of those that exports data as a WAV file or as an AIF file. So I've just messed around in my loops library here, and I'm just going to find something that I can play along to. So I've just found an analog drum machine here. Okay, so that's fine. So what I'm going to do is just drag that into my session here. So what I'm going to do now is just make it into a 2-bar phrase. So just shorten it there in Logic. Anyone who's familiar with Logic or Cubase or any of these things, you'll know how to do any of this sort of stuff. Now what I want to do is actually get it out of Logic and onto my desktop so that I can put it into my SPD-SX. So I'll do that now. All I'm doing is the loop bar there, I'm just making that into 2 bars. So up the top here we've got the bounce function. So we just hit bounce, it's in AIF format. We'll just put it onto our desktop. So once we've done that and put it onto our desktop, we're ready to put it into the SPD-SX. The SPD-SX also comes with its own software called Wave Manager, so we'll open that up. And it recognises straight away that I've got my SPD-SX plugged into the computer, so we hit OK there. It'll read what's already on your SPD-SX, and here we go. So it's come up straight away with which bank that I'm using here. So it's kit number 24. What I can do is actually audition these sounds just by double clicking it. Here at the side here, it's got all of my folders. So what I'll do now is let's just create a new folder, and we'll just call it new. That's great. Okay, so there's our new folder. So now to get it on the SPD-SX, all I do is just drag it across and drop it. So everything went across no problems at all, and you see as soon as I unplug the computer, then I get back my little screen here. So I've just found the drum kit that we just made, number 28, which we called Sam1. So at the moment that loop that we just made in Logic is what we call a single shot. So I can start the sample like what I'm doing here, but if I hit it again it's going to keep going. Which is really cool for some things, but what we want to do is to make it loop, so it's just a continuous loop. So what I'm going to do now is actually go into my SPD-SX here and just change it so that it loops instead of it being a single shot. So one of the cool things I like about the SPD-SX is how well it's laid out. There's lots of buttons on the front here that tell you exactly what you're doing. No more scrolling through tiny little menus and things like that. So there's the menu button there. What we're going to do is we're going to make that sample loop instead of being a one shot. So if I go into my pad mode here, enter, and we go into mode, so we find which one we want to work on, which is that one there. So at the moment the loop is off. So we're going to turn that on, and at the moment it's a shot, so it means when you hit it and you hit it again it just keeps going on and on. So what I want to do is actually make it so that when I hit it again it alternates, so it turns it off again. So we find our alt, there it is there. And what I also do is I actually, for loops, I turn the dynamics off. As they are preset, they're on, so it just means that the harder you hit the pad, the louder or softer it is. So the harder or softer you hit the pad, the louder or softer it is. So I turn them off because with the loops I just want them coming out at a constant sort of volume. And we hit menu and everything should be good to go. because that was a 2-bar phrase, it's going to do the 2 bars and then keep repeating. And then hopefully, great, so when I hit it again it turns it off. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate how you actually sample straight into the SPD-SX. So it's really quite simple. All you do is anything that's got an output, so a keyboard or a drum machine or anything like that, you can just plug it straight into there. You can also plug a microphone in there as well because it's got either mic or line inputs on it. So it's really quite easy. So I'm just going to do it now just using this Roland synth that I've got here. So we go into our sample mode here. I'm just going to use the basic mode, but there's whole lots of different ones that you can do. You can actually sample onto multi-pads if you want to, but just for this purpose I'm just going to sample onto the one pad. So we get into our basic mode here, enter. So it's actually got its own gain control at the back there, so you can just start by hitting it and just make sure your levels are all okay. So that's all okay with me. So if I just hit standby here, start sampling straight away. And I'll just hit stop to stop it. Now the best thing about this over the SPD-S is how easy it is actually to trim up all of your samples that you put in there. So in this it's very visual, so you can see where the start and stop of all of your waves are. So what I'm going to do now is just trim up that sample. It doesn't need all that much because it started recording straight away. So that's the start, it's all trimmed up at the start pretty well. If I fast forward to the end there, I might just trim up the end a bit. And it's as easy as that. So when I hit enter, it selects that it's just put that sample onto there. So I've completed sampling. You can go and do another one if you like if I wanted to play another chord, or for now I'm just going to leave it at that. Hit enter and fingers crossed. There's our sample there, and it was as easy as that. So if you don't have a computer available, it's really easy to get any sample that you want into here via a microphone or via a line input. So the SPD-SX is really good for parts that you can't cover live. So maybe you've recorded your album and it's got all these big lush keyboard arrangements, or it's got single notes, or it's got single hits, or single sounds on there that you can't actually duplicate live because you don't want to pay the extra players or whatever it is. And the cool thing about that is you've got total control over them. So you can start and stop them when you want, and it just makes it a lot more musical rather than being locked into a sequence. Okay, so a great real-world example of this is that I play in a covers band and we do lots of R&B type stuff. So what I've actually done is cut up a lot of samples just using the same method that we did before with our little drum machine, where I've gotten a hold of some instrumental tracks, and it's just basically I'm cutting up samples to cover parts that we can't do on stage because we don't have that amount of people in the band. Okay, so for this example, I'm actually using a Kanye West song called Stronger that everyone should be familiar with. What I've got here, using all of the methods that we did there before to get our samples in, I've got lots of different samples all on different pads. And the reason I've got them like that is because I'm getting away from having just a backing track, so if someone forgets the song, or if something happens, or a fight breaks out and we have to stop the song or something like that, then I've got full control over everything. So I'm just going to play it and I'll show you how I actually use it live on the gig. So I've got my intro here, and it's just a single shot, and then I've got a loop that I can kick in, and then at the end of that phrase, and then there's a keyboard part that we can't actually cover live. So yeah, so it's good fun. It keeps me on my toes when I'm sort of playing and I'm trying to work out which pad I'm going to hit and everything like that. So it's really good fun. It's a really good musical way of actually using your samples rather than being locked into a backing track. So I have my SPD-SX on a stand. I actually have it there in front of me. Sometimes I'll have it off to the left of my hi-hats, but it just means I can play drums while this is going. And that's really the reason why I love the SPD-SX, is because it just fills out the band and it gives us a whole new level of authenticity because we're using all of these really cool sounding samples that you just can't cover unless you've got a heap of people in the band with you. So as you can see, I'm super impressed with the SPD-SX, and they're perfect for anyone who's doing what I'm doing, which is covers, musos. Even if you're in an originals band and you're doing your stuff and you want to cover some parts off the album that you don't want to pay someone to play live, they're great for that. Great for anybody who's into electronic types of music. Even I've seen some DJs and some people like that actually just playing it as a standalone thing to sample a few of their sounds and to get a little bit more musicality into their performance. If you want any more information, drop into the store, into either one of the stores, and come and say hi to me. Or if you wanted to purchase it online, go to kosmic.com.au. Thanks.